Okay, so this is TK Shazam. I am just a nerd who likes Tekken, and I want to talk about it. A lot of people are asking, or more and more people I see are asking about what to do against mashers. How do I handle this? I'm hoping to go over the basic concepts. The first thing will be talking about frame traps. What are your options? What and why you'd want to use them? Armor moves. Those are kind of the easier ones to talk about, and then we'll talk about the advanced stuff. This should just be a brief overview, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Frame traps. I'm not going to go into super intense detail here. If you are curious about what frame traps are like in Tekken, I cannot recommend them enough. Just go watch the PHIDX video on it. So go search up YouTube, PHIDX, and frame traps, and it should be like the first thing that comes up. And that's if somehow you found this channel or found this video and don't know who that is. For just a brief introduction into frame traps, you have a plus frame situation. Whoops, counter hit. You have a plus frame situation, whether that's on block or on hit, and then you do an option that will beat out most, if not everything, the opponent does. For example, if I hit back 4 and I press jab while I still have that frame advantage, my jab will have a 4-frame head start, right? And it'll beat pretty much anything the opponent can do besides ducking, right? Pretty basic example of a frame trap. Why are frame traps good? Because if the opponent is mashing, you will just beat them out, right? Now, what your options are, and obviously will scale with the more risk you take, and sometimes not leave you in the greatest of situations. So a jab is very low commitment, low risk, but also low reward, right? Even if you are to counter hit the opponent, you get 1 point more damage and not any increase in frame advantage, right? However, this is how you can keep the frame trap going, right? Because a jab on hit is +8, and now you can go into other stuff or into another jab, and if they start ducking, you can start doing a mid, right? But still, low commitment, low risk. I think still a decent reward, but it's not as crazy as an actual counter hit, right? Another option you have immediately up in speed at 12 frames is down 1+2, right? At 12 frames, this will beat jabs if you do it from back 4 on hit. This will beat pretty much anything, right? Even ducking, they have to block. If they're mashing, they're going to get hit. But as you can see, launches, right? This move has a bit of a gimmick to it where, because of the fast nature and the kind of very, very quick block stun, people might not always launch punish you because they're not ready. And also there's some weird instances of pushback, right? Again, you're taking more risk, but now your reward is big damage, right? 30 damage into a knockdown, into dealing with Oki, which we talked about before, right? But, you know, sometimes you don't want to do a launch punishable move. That's where other options can come in, like down forward 2, right? Or back 3. Both natural hitting launchers that when you frame trap the opponent can, you know, just counter hit launch them, right? Back 4, now your down forward 2 will beat a lot of, you know, anything that's 12 frames or slower, right? So any of the other down forward 1s, you might be able to still, if you do it like from here, right, a tip range back 4 into this, the down forward 2 might still whiff under some jabs due to its high evasion. You never know. Back 3 is a bit faster, so you get like a tighter frame advantage, right? So if you do back 4 into hit onto back 3, you won't beat jabs, but you'll trade favorably with them, right? I don't think there's a single jab in the game that knocks down on hit, right? So that's pretty decent there. And now we get into like the really kind of, as a frame trap, you want to use it in specific situations, but I think they're still pretty good, right? You have forward circle back 4, you have forward 1+2, and you have down forward 4. Each of these options have their own strengths, right? if an opponent is running at you, right? Let's go stand and approach. If they're running at you and then they're approaching with a move, pressing backdashing and then pressing Corsica back 4 can, you know, there's just block hit. As long as this move does not whiff, you are in a favorable situation, right? +1 on block isn't a lot, but you can still bait something out from the opponent. Forward 1 +2, right? If you guessed wrong, but you're still fast enough to, you know, force the opponent to block, you're still left in a very favorable position, right? +3, forcing the opponent to crouch, limiting their options, and now you can go into more frame traps, right? And then down forward 4 is faster and easier to execute. Corsica back 4 technically can be 18 frames with if you count the entire input, but it's 17? Was it 2? Down, back 4. Yeah, like 17, 18 frames. But realistically, this is going to be 18 to 19 more often because you gotta have frame perfect execution, right? And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But down forward 4 is 17 frames, so even with, like, at fastest input, still equal to Corsica back 4, has massive range. Right, look at that range. And leaves you at -2 on block, right? So you'll see, like, you see the pros and cons pretty easily, right? This move being a mid still leaves you in a decent situation, honestly, a really good situation for how much this move does, right? Still leaves you in a decent situation on block, but now you are no longer plus, right? This is still fine. Those are the quick overview of singular moves that I like for frame traps with Paul. Not the biggest fan of down 1 +2, but it is what it is. Now we can talk about canned timing. So if the opponent's mashing, and I'm talking, there's a lot of caveats and context to this. For this example, we're going to talk about an opponent that just doesn't matter what they do. If the moment they get an opportunity, they're just mashing. Like if you look at their input history, they're just mashing whatever they can, right? They're just mashing whatever they can. So you can use sort of canned timing sequences that have gaps in them, right? Basically, you can use a string if and some of Paul's strings have enough of a gap and lead to a rewarding counter hit that will destroy people who mash too often, right? Pretty common one is down forward 1, backsway cancel into backsway 4. This will lose to jabs. An opponent can jab you out of it, but a lot of times if at the early stages people are mashing in with pretty slow stuff, right? So this canned timing situation leaves you plus, and then the opponent, and you also get chip damage in this game, and the opponent pressing anything slower than a jab, and they're gonna get hit out of it, right? Into a counter hit. Similarly, you can do 3-2 back 4, same idea, right? But don't use this in neutral, right? Use this as a whip punish because again, the second hit is a duckable high, and on block people are gonna be ducking it on reaction. The idea is similar, so because technically this is a counter hit launcher, you know, if they're mashing, you're gonna counter hit them. So you want to confirm what the opponent is like. If you know they don't duck this string and they like mashing a lot, fuck it, throw out 3-2, right? But be careful, right? Don't let it become your layer 1. Don't let it become your baseline offense. Try to save this for when you can confirm the opponent is not going to be ducking the second hit a lot. But the ideas are the same, right? Backsway cancel, you're really plus, and now you can do... Whoop. Well, this is on block, right? Yeah, right. And then you have wall standing 1-2 or 1-2 backsway cancel. This is really good, right? Mid cancels into +1. Paul can sidestep cancel, delay timing, whatever you want, right? Same idea. Boop boop. Much easier. A bit more difficult, you want to get used to the executing a while standing input. For some people, you know, it's easier said than done, right? Oh. Right. Same idea there. You have this gap in the string where if people are mashing, they will typically get hit out by it, right? And the nice thing about any of the backsway cancels is if the opponent mashes jab, you can just go backsway 3, boop, boop, or just delay timing, right? And then let them whiff their jab and then hit them out of it. The high risk kind of crazy reward is back 1, quarter circle back 1+2, right? That will destroy a lot of jabs, but this is -14, right? So I want to be careful. Don't throw that out too much. You got to make that read, that educated guess that I believe the opponent's gonna mash, and this quarter circle back 1+2, it's gonna get them. I think that's it for. Oh, there's also 1, 1, 2. Same idea. Canned timing with the gap in between, and opponents mashing will get hit, right? Oh. Into, if I had the execution, into Death Fist, right? It's not a move I use a lot. Maybe I should, but this is the same issue as down forward 1, backsway 4. There is a gap here, right? You can get jabbed out of this gap. Here, they can't jab you, but because the high is always the follow-up, there is no other follow-up to down forward 1 besides this high and then the backsway cancel, right? People will sometimes duck this. But again, we're talking about mashers, so not going to go too much into it. You shouldn't have to worry about this too much. Just keep that in mind, right? Remember, hey, there's a gap here. An opponent can technically duck this, and then you have to worry about their response. Lastly, there's probably a bit more, but armor moves. Armor moves are insane in this game, right? They were decent in the previous game. Like, this move is really good. It's a mid. Easy follow-ups, right? Boop. Oh, easy follow-ups. This one is a safe on block high, right? But the properties of armor moves are insane, right? If they absorb armor, they become safer on block. Sometimes they'll even track in like weird situations. It's very weird, right? It's a lot more rewarding to use this move, but at the same time, a lot riskier, right? Now, if the opponent sees that you're doing an armor move or has a read on it, they can throw you out of it into a guaranteed punish. And then obviously, lows will always beat armor, right? So you have to be a bit careful. Again, those are the risks. In this situation, when we're fighting mashers, this is amazing, right? Especially this one being a mid mashing, easy. And then both of Paul's armor moves, wall splat, right? So they're mashing, nice. Easy. I messed that up because it's technically not a real combo, but easy, right? Wall splat for free. Either one. The idea is, again, you are calling out, you're making an educated guess, believing that the opponent's going to mash. Use the armor moves, right? So you have a big variety. Go with what you're comfortable with. I think easy ones to apply are, of course, go back 4. Down 1+2 is easy. You'd be surprised at how often this gets people. Really insane. You also have to remember, we're going to talk about an advanced concept right now, but to preface that, it's what are they mashing with, right? A lot of people will mash jabs, down forward 1, their power move, whatever they want to mash with. But others will also mash dick jab, right? This little boop, special low, or their other low. In these situations, remember that you also have hop kick, again, weird range, right? You can see it whiffing. But that's where Shredders comes in. Technically, up forward 2 also low crushes, but it's a high that low crushes. So I wouldn't recommend it, because if they're doing a low or if they're doing a dick jab, they're ducking, right? So your low crushing advancing move, which is, I think is still good, is gonna whiff over them, right? So be careful with that. But forward 4 low crushes, because it needs it. I don't know. I really this move is something else, but you know. So this will low crush. These will low crush. But the idea is, those are your options, and you want to tailor it to what is your opponent mashing with. Is it basically, is it a low or special low? No? Cool, use your other options. If it is, and they're consistent about it, Shredders. Those are the moves. Now let's talk about some more advanced options to deal with mashers, right? Let's go. How do we want to do this? Let's talk about the somewhat advanced one, is sidestep, right? So let's go. Yes. Boop. Jab, dick jab. Yes. All right, keep it simple. Against dick jab, against most jabs, against some down back fours, or generic down fours, it's a bit weird. Tracking is a bit iffy on them. Movement is always a good option, right? Jab, whoop. Jab, whoop. Jab, whoop. Right? Jab, whoop. Jab, whoop. All right, you get the idea. Those options are very linear. So if an opponent is mashing these options, like a lot of jabs, a lot of dick jab, some down back forward, you kind of have to lab out. Like I think Paul's is weak to sidestep right, but it'll catch sidestep left pretty well. You want to figure out, okay, what are they mashing with, and then make a read, and then movement. Movement is a bit more difficult to execute, because again, you have to understand which way to step. Even if stuff like that is very linear, you have to have confidence in it. And you might not always get the reward. You might successfully step, but these moves are very quick, right? So you're not going to be able to whiff punish them consistently without practice. Oh, that's so funny. Being off axis like that. That's so interesting. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. That's so fascinating. I gotta remember that. So you gotta be careful with that, but the reward is that you committed nothing, right? This is the least amount of commitment, but also potential avenues for the most amount of reward, right? So let's replay. Oh. Okay. Right? So you see the punish light up, right? On a read with movement, I'm able to just whoop, whoop, whoop. But I'm able to punish it. So on a read, it can be very predictive, right? It has to be kind of predictive. You have to kind of read it. But against moves with, more whiff recovery, it's a lot easier to confirm, right? Especially if a lot of opponents 1-2s these extended jab strings, they're moving for a little bit longer, so then you can see, oh cool, they're still moving down forward too, stuff like that. But it's a bit more advanced, but it's something you want to be aware of, right? Against a lot of people mashing, a lot of those moves can typically have a weakness to movement. It's a bit more difficult because there's a lot of case-by-case scenarios, right? You can't just step everything to one direction. And this is also where I want to talk about the most difficult concept of dealing with mashers. You just block. Like we talked about before, if an opponent is mashing, whether you or a different opponent, right? Stuff like this, while fast and really crazy, right, is launch punishable. And so just blocking and letting the opponent do something that's punishable nets you very easy rewards as Paul. Paul has Not perfect, because I think the 1-2 is kind of lacking these days, but I still like +8, so I'm biased here. But having a 12-frame Punisher like Paul does is amazing, right? A lot of moves, you'd be surprised at how a lot of moves are -12 as opposed to just -13. And how many characters only have a 13-frame punish, but they don't have a 12-frame. A little bit less rare, but the idea is that having a 12-frame standing Punisher, having a crouching 13-frame punish are still valuable tools to have. And most importantly, having a 14-frame launcher is very valuable. You're no jet upper, that's obvious, right? But you'd be surprised, especially with a lot of the new characters, how much stuff that they mash is -14 on block, and it leaves them in range for back 3 to work out, right? So the difficulty obviously comes from knowing what your punishes are. There's not really an easy way around it. This is the tough part, right? You have to figure out how much investment you want to make. Do you need to know every single knowledge check in the game, right? And labbing out every single string and then developing that experience? No. Do you need to know a lot of them? Yes. There's a lot of characters in this game, and it's only going to go up because I think Tekken 7 started with maybe 20 characters or something. Something pretty small, right? And then by the end of it, we had 50. Right? They're just going to keep adding characters because the season pass system just works out so well for them. It's a money printer. It's unfortunate, right? You do need to know a lot of knowledge checks. So how do you manage it with just kind of like, how can you make it easier for yourself? The thing about it is that the thing about knowledge checks is that once you learn the knowledge check and once you develop that experience of dealing with it, it's the same no matter the player, right? You're in this situation, you are focusing on the character. No matter what Paul you face, right? If you practice developing the knowledge check of dealing with 3-2 and while standing 3-2, right? Boop. The moment you see that high come out, you can, and there's no follow-up, right? There's no Paul doesn't magically get a mid from this string, right? It's only the high. So the moment you see the mid come out, just duck. If he doesn't do anything, you're golden. Just stand back up. If he does the high, keep ducking and then whiff punish him, right? Now, it doesn't matter if you're fighting me, if you're fighting a random Paul online, if you're fighting Knee, right? If they do this string, you are going to duck it and launch them. So that makes things a little bit easier, right? A lot of these knowledge checks are just that. They're a knowledge check, you pass it, you move on, and you now have a pretty consistent defense against them. So my recommendation is just as you play, right? It doesn't have to be right away. Don't just look up like, oh, top 10 knowledge checks. I mean, well, actually, if that video exists and you see it, why not? Just keep an eye out. Just you know, start taking notes or start just visually remembering, oh, I'm facing this character a lot. They use this move a lot. What can I do against it? If you fight against Law, Junkyard Dog, I think it's like back 2-3. It's his mid-low string, right? It's always the low auto parry Junkyard Dog, auto low parry Junkyard Dog. If somehow they gave him a mid in this game and I'm not aware of it, I am terribly sorry. But you know. Try to look at what's commonly used as gimmicks by characters. And some characters, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get all their gimmicks down. Others will be easier. But you want to focus on what are the common ones you're seeing at your level, right? Just focus on the common ones. Don't worry about everything in the move list. Just look at the screen, look at what the opponent is doing, and then take a little bit of notes like, okay, I fought a Paul, he's doing 3-2. I fought a Law, he's doing Junkyard Dog. I'm fighting Jin, and they do that, or Kazuya, and they do that 1-2 punch into the low, right? Into that, like the 1-2 punch into the low string that they do. Stuff like that, right? Especially strings, they're very canned mix-up and very easy to kind of just demolish, right? Now, that's the trade-off. There are a lot of knowledge checks, yes. However, once you build up that knowledge and you can pass the check, you're set, right? Tekken relies a lot on legacy skill, and you'll be rewarded for it, right? Now, if you go back in time, there will be slight changes, right? Not everything's going to transfer over, but a good portion of your effort into learning to fight a character will be rewarded. It's tough. It's a long road. There's not really like any sort of there's no sugarcoating it, right? It's just how much investment do you want to make into this game, and the payoff for it. Especially if you're playing Paul, you just kind of need to know, because his gimmicks just don't last in the long run. But that can be a video for another time. For now, I've given you a wide plethora of options, and should be set. So key takeaways, right? Frame traps, they are your friend. Use a jab, use down forward 4, experiment, find out what you're comfortable with. If the opponent is not too crazy, like you just want like a canned timing string, down forward 1, back 4, right? Typically eats mashers alive. If they start jabbing you out of it, of course I'll go back 3, etc., etc. Experiment with it. Armor moves, try to mess with them a little bit more. They're very rewarding this time around, and Paul's got a sweet set, right? This being a mid, both of them being wall splats, pretty neat, right? And then we talked about the advanced options. Experiment with sidesteps. The sooner you build up that skill, the much better it'll be, right? Experiment with just blocking and starting to get comfortable with, oh, this is punishable. Because you know that's punishable, from now till the end of time, you'll know this move is punishable with this option. You can use it. Alright. I'm going to be trying to cover more basic concepts and try to expand on them as much as I can. Feel free to ask any questions below, any concepts or ideas you're not sure on and would want to see more of an in-depth breakdown. Alright, thank you.